You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. Speaking of living the life you want, how is life treating you right now? I know that we all are going through some very difficult circumstances, and I think we should take a minute just to think on the positive side of things. You know, we're bombarded with depressing statistics about people who are dying from coronavirus and people who are sick. And what the media does not talk about that much is how many people have recovered. So just keep that in mind and begin to see this as an opportunity to focus on the positive, to improve yourself, to help other people. And the question I ask myself is, what can I learn from this and how can I grow? How can I become a better version of myself as a result of the things that all of us are going through? And we are in it together. We're going through it together. Today's guest is really interesting because he has a story that focuses on a very interesting proposition, how facing death can actually give us a new life. I'm here with Dr. Alan Lycka. He was a world-class dermatologist when he was misdiagnosed as having ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and he was told that he had 6 months to live in 2003. Well, if you do the math, that's not quite 20 years ago. And so we're really delighted that the diagnosis was wrong. And it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Alan Lycka to Rebelpreneur Radio. Welcome.
You know, it's such a pleasure to be here, Ralph. I really am glad to have this opportunity to talk to you and your audience out there. It really is a wonderful day.
It's a beautiful day here. It's a beautiful day. You tell me where you are up in Calgary.
I'm in the frozen north of Edmonton, Alberta.
Edmonton,
we have
okay.
A beautiful sunny day, but it's the sun is glistening off the snow, and it's cold. I mean, by your standards.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you how beautiful this is. This is truly a God's day. It's a day God has given us, and you can see the sun is still shining, and I think everybody got to know that the sun will shine and will keep on shining.
We will get through this one way or the other, but how we get through it is really up to us, whether we approach this with doom and gloom or whether we look at it through a positive mental attitude and focus. Your story is intriguing in that you were facing kind of a life and death moment yourself when you were misdiagnosed.
Let me go through that story for you, Ralph.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
It's really, I was walking with my wife in Disneyland with my daughter back in 2003. It was spring break. And my wife turned to me and she said, "What's wrong with you, hon?" And I looked at her like she was from the moon and I said, "What do you mean? You know, if you've been in a marital situation for any while, you know, your wife will do that every now and again. What's wrong with you?" And for once, I haven't done anything wrong. I hadn't even thought anything wrong. And I asked her, "What do you mean?" She said, "Your foot is flapping." Now, what the heck does this mean? I thought, geez, I'm not even speaking the same language right now. I looked at her quizzically, and she looked at me, and she said, "Listen to your foot." Okay. So as I was walking, I was listening to my foot. And my foot had suddenly developed, my right foot had developed a foot drop. And the foot drop was there on every step I took. It was slapping against the pavement. It wasn't lifting like it should with every step. It was hot outside. It was like 33 degrees centigrade, so around 100, 102 Fahrenheit. It was hot. I was sweating through every pore. So I told my wife that. She said, no, this doesn't explain it. When we get back, you're going to have to get this checked out. Now, when your wife tells you you better get something checked out, you know you better be listening. Otherwise, you know what will happen. So when I got back, I got every test known. I had CAT scans, brain scans, scans. And you know what they showed at the end of that, Ralph?
No idea.
They had showed absolutely nothing. Doctors were perplexed. They thought I had a tumor in my brain. They didn't see that. They thought I had a slipped disc. They didn't see that. So then I went to see a world-class neurologist, the best in the world, and he told me, you better be sitting down when I tell you this. And I said, what's wrong? I've got a dropped foot. He said, no, you don't. You have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and in 6 months you're going to be dead. Get your affairs in order. Now, that basically shows no bedside manner. I'm still angered to this day by his statement. I said, I shot back at him. I'm not going to die to prove you wrong, because the only way to prove this diagnosis is autopsy. And I wasn't going to go to an autopsy to prove him wrong. So, back in 2003, there was this little device called the Internet. It was very primitive. A lot of times you had to get up on DOS. You had to learn a strange language to get on it. And you could start searching things around the world. And one of my partners was very much into the Internet at that time. And he taught me how to get on there. So I searched every disease that was like ALS. And I came up with this funny disease called chronic Lyme's disease, which is the bite of a tick that causes a chronic neurological illness. And I found a doctor in Colorado Springs by the name of David Martz who was affected by this. Now, David's story was similar to mine, except he got rapidly more worse than I did. He was on his deathbed. He could almost not raise his head from a pillow. And all he could do at that point in time was he was ready for dead. So what did people do? People came around to say goodbye to David because they knew him very well. This guy was a world authority in hematology, blood disorders, and he had a lot of friends. And a doctor came up from Texas to see him, and he looked at David, and something didn't look right. He said, David, you don't have ALS, you have something else. And David said, what do I have? And he said, you have chronic Lyme's disease. And if I'm right, I'm going to give you a medication and you're going to rapidly get better. David looked at him and said, well, what have I got to lose? He started the medication, and within 7 days, he was like Lazarus arising from the dead. He literally got up from his bed and started to dance. And wow, that was it for David. And I knew I had to talk to David. Now, being a doctor can get in touch with any other doctor on the planet if he's persistent. So I phoned the hospitals down in Colorado Springs, and the Methodist Hospital down in Colorado Springs put me through to David, and I talked to him. Now, this was on Thanksgiving weekend, our Thanksgiving, which is equal to your Columbus Day down there, and he said, can you come down and see me? And I said, David, how can I come down and see you? It's Thanksgiving here. My wife's having 40 people over. My wife will kill me if I come over. He said, aren't there any planes? So I got on a plane from Edmonton to Denver, Colorado. It was a great plane ride. And then I got on a plane from Denver to Colorado Springs, which was the worst event in my life. At the end of the day, hot air comes off the desert and causes this plane to drop like the drop of doom, 100 feet all at once. And I tell you, it's awful. It goes over and over and over again. It's only a 10 or a 15-minute flight, but it is like the drop of doom. And when I got off that plane, I literally crawled off. And, there was David to meet me on the tarmac. And David said, you don't look so good. And I said, oh, I sure don't look so good. And he said, this is really an allegory for what's going on in your life. So we talked for hours. Next day, he gave me some simple tests that proved that I had chronic Lyme's disease. And I started on treatment, and to this day I've done good. I've lost some functioning in my right arm. It's not as good as it used to be. But despite that, from 2003 to last year, I maintained my status as one of the top cosmetic dermatologists in the world. I was doing liposuction. I was doing skin cancers. I was doing everything. And at that time, I just decided it was enough to step out of the home plate and decide to take life a little easier. And it certainly is apropos that as soon as I retire, the world comes to an end or tries to come to an end. But I really want people to know that it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens. And as a result of what happened to me, I found golden pearls, I call them. They are golden things that everybody needs to live with and go forward. And I think those are very apropos to this day and age because really this is a time when people can learn new things, just like my near-death experience. That's what the world is going through right now. So it's a time to reconsider, and you can come out hard, you can come out angry, you can come out swinging and mad like I did, or you can go forward and use this as a growing opportunity to live a better life, a life that you should have had all along. And that's what I've done. I've just finished writing a great little book called The Secrets of Living a Fantastic Life. It's going to be out on April 25th, and it is available to our readers at fantasticlifebook.com. And 20% of the profit of this book is going to hit those hardest hit by COVID-19 in the inner city. I think the best way I can help right now is to give 20% to food banks in your area, wherever you buy it from. But if you buy from that link, Fantastic Life Book, I can monitor who's buying it, and then I can send it to the food bank in your area, which I think would be the greatest gift in the world right now. Because I've seen pictures right now of lineups for the food bank that extend for miles and miles and miles. And it's scary how this has impacted so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of the book is The Secrets of Living a Fantastic Life. And so you can check that out at fantasticlifebook.com. Dr. Lycka, share with us, if you don't mind, 2 or 3 of those golden pearls about how we can live a fantastic life
I'm
and
going to
respond
go
instead of react.
A couple of my favorite ones, if that's okay with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know what one of the best golden pearls is? I think it's laughter. Nothing works faster or more consistently to bring your mind and body back into balance than a good laugh. Humor lightens your burdens. It gives you hope and connects you to others. It keeps you grounded, focused, and alert. And you do know that 91% of executives believe a sense of humor is important for career development?
Interesting.
Now, let me ask you, do you know what the funniest joke in the world is?
Well, I was thinking about one, and I was going to lay it on you and see what you thought, but you tell me. What's the funniest joke in the world?
Well, there was a PhD doctor in England by the name of Mr. Wiseman that studied this. He asked thousands of people what the funniest joke in the world was. And this is what came up after all this. 2 hunters were out in the woods. One drops down. It looks like he's dead. Well, his buddy gets on his cell phone, and he phones 911, and he says, help me, help me, help me, help me. My buddy's dead. What do I do? The operator said, calm down, sir. You know, most of these are a false accident. They're fake news. And what you have to do is first make sure he's dead. So the phone drops down. All of a sudden, the operator hears a loud bang, and then he comes back to the phone and says, yes, he's dead. What do I do now? So I know that's a terrible, terrible thing, and it's a terrible joke, but at the same time, I have yet had a person not laugh from that yet.
That is pretty funny.
Okay, let's go to another golden pearl, and this is one of my favorites. It is enthusiasm. You know, enthusiasm is something that carries the day in and out. You know, how many people go to work every day dragging their ass, or go through this period of time dragging their ass, saying, oh, woe's me, there's really nothing to live for. This day is just terrible. Nothing's going on. Well, I tell you, this is a time when enthusiasm has to rule the day, because enthusiasm is the most important thing you can bring to every day and really make the world happen. And I'd love to share with your audience a story of enthusiasm.
Sure. The enthusiasm is more than just a mental attitude. It's actually a physical presence, isn't it?
Oh, it's a mindset. It's a presence. It's how you handle everything that goes on. And I think it really, as I'm talking to you, Ralph, it allows me to reach over the phone and touch you. It allows me to get over to your audience and touch them as well, because I think that's a very important thing to do.
Absolutely. So share that story with us about an enthusiasm.
Sure. There was an old carpenter. His name was Fred. He was 65 and he was tired. He had worked for 40 years in a business and he just couldn't go anymore. He decided to really put all his chips in and go to his boss and says, I'm done. I just can't do it anymore. So he goes to his boss and he says, dear, I just can't do this anymore. It's not something that I can do. I've been your carpenter for a lot of times, but every day I get in here, my heart's not into it. I just can't play this game any longer. So his boss said, Fred, you really are my most valuable employee. Can you do something for me before you retire? Fred said, boss, yeah, anything. I've loved you, and I've loved your company, and I've loved working here, so anything you ask, sure. And the boss said, I've got a special project for you that only you can do. Being my master carpenter, you need to build me a house. And he said, just one more? And the boss said, yeah, just one more. So he goes to work. He barely drags his ass into work every day. He does the shoddiest work imaginable. He just, at the end of all this, it barely passes an inspection. It's so poorly done. So at the end of this, he goes to his boss and throws the keys on the boss's desk and says, okay, I'm done. Here's your house. I'm leaving. And he said, Fred, you can't just leave like that. Everybody in this office loves you. Today we're breaking the champagne. We're celebrating. We really want you to go into your retirement happy. And he said, because of all you've done to me, I've got a special present for you. And he gave the keys back to Fred and said, this is your house. I want you to live in it the rest of your days and live with it because it's something that you built with pride. Doesn't that tell you how important it is to bring enthusiasm to everything you do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Do it right or don't do it at all. And when you are tired and don't feel like that you can go on any further, that's when you just have to dig deep and say, we're going to get it done.
I find every day's like that. I've had the wonderful opportunity of living 20 years past the time I was supposed to be dead. So every day I'm living on borrowed time. Every day I've been given, I have to do to the maximum because, I wasn't supposed to have this day. I really wasn't supposed to have this. And I realize it's really not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, life gives you lemons. Do you want to eat lemons or do you want to make lemonade? Life is always going to give us little road bumps. Well, those are challenges. The trees that survive the greatest hurricanes are those with the biggest root structure because they're deeply embedded in everything around them. And so those trees really survive through some of the worst storms, whereas others don't. So you got to get that root structure developed, and you got to keep working on it. You got to keep working on everything every day. And when little things happen, you got to realize they're little challenges. I read the news every day about this COVID, and they tell me that 1% of people are going to die. Well, let's flip that around. That means 99% are going to live.
That's right.
Wow. And when I listen to all these people infected, I keep saying, good. That means there's going to be more herd immunity going around pretty soon, and we're all going to be protected. So to me, these are challenges. When I looked at statistics, they're really scary because do you know how many people died of the flu last time they were recorded, probably 2017, 2018.
Yeah, I would think it's the numbers I saw, and I guess it depends on where you look, between 40 and 60,000 people in the United States, I think.
It's a huge number, and I don't know exactly what the number is, but it far surpasses what we're going to have from COVID. Now, the problem is all this is going through at once, so it's swamping our resources. But at the same time, this is a blip on the radar screen. And, I always found when the going gets tough, the tough get going. It brings out the best in people, and it also brings out the worst in people. So you have to decide what side of this equation you're going to be on. I'd sooner be on the best side. I'd sooner be on the survival side. I'd sooner be on the side where people are really going to be winners than not winners. Losing doesn't have a single day in my life. If I didn't question my diagnosis, I would have been dead in 6 months. I really decided to find the right answer, and I was able to find the right answer. So the world is a wonderful place if you want it to be. But it's also an awful place if you want it to be too.
and you can have whichever world you choose. It all depends on how you look at it. This is really, I think, so timely in the situation that we're going through right now. But beyond that, once we get past this and the world moves on to something else, I think that the wisdom you have shared with us is evergreen. It's going to take us through many of life's challenges. And so, if you're listening to this and you're struggling in your personal life, or you're struggling in your business, or in whatever your mission is right now, all of us we all have a choice. We can choose to react negatively to what's going on, or we can choose to respond positively to what's going on. Dr. Lycka, I really appreciate you being on the show today. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with?
First of all, I'm going to challenge everybody on this call to pay it forward. Do something for your neighbor today that you wouldn't otherwise do. Secondly, I'm going to ask you to go to my site, fantasticlifebook.com, and have a look at it. It costs $19.95 Canadian, so that's $19.95 almost in pesos. Our Canadian dollar is really depressed against the American dollar right now, and I think people could have a charm there that will really help them. It's going to be out for April 25th. We're going to put through orders then. And if you buy through that site, I will give you free shipping, and 20% will go to to those inner city people. Now, also, if you buy 2 books, you can give one to your mother or any woman in your life, because this will be available for Mother's Day.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, the timing is excellent, and I really appreciate your insight, Dr. Alan Lycka. He is and was a world-class dermatologist. When he was misdiagnosed as having ALS and was told that he had 6 months to live, and that was back in 2003. So he has beat the odds, and just really thankful that that doctor got it wrong. Thank you so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. Best wishes and best health to you as well.
Ralph, if I could be of further help to you or your audience, please let me know. I would certainly love to help others in this situation.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at rebelpreneur.com.